Hello and welcome, ladies, gents, and those that know better, to the Vtracc.eu VTuber Track Challenge 2025 Season 1. Today, forgive me, today brings us to the famous and infamous Spa-Francorchamps, nestled in the Belgian hills. However, how will this well-known and challenging track challenge our variety of VTubers today? Because I believe we have a range of newcomers and long-time drivers. April, would you like to tell us more?
Yep, that's right. Mix of old and new drivers. So there's some people here who I don't think anyone really knows where they're going to settle in. Today was going to be our first chance to see that, and it's going to be tricky conditions to do it as well. You can see in the top right corner of the screen there, track condition is green and 17 degrees. That is cold and low grip as well. So I imagine we'll see drivers struggle to get their tires up to temperature here, which is not the dream for as qualifying starting, but it's the same for everyone. So I guess we'll see who can manage that the best.
Indeed. Apologies for the slightly scuffed introduction. After the long winter break, some of us probably feeling the rust a little bit. My name is Dirty Kohai, VTuber and commentator for you today, joined by April, and also we have Sean KP in the production booth. But then again, I'm just curious as to how a lot of our regulars and also the newcomers will be able to handle the track, given we've all had a bit of time off racing. We have the likes of Midnight Hurricane currently with the fastest lap of 2:18.8, at least in practice.
Yeah, that's right. Midnight Hurricane, of course, a force to be reckoned with. We saw that last season. And Lucas Lichten, who finished second place last season. Previous VTuber series champion as well, so I'm sure he's wondering if he can get another one started today, but I guess we'll just wait and see and find out.
Yeah, it's going to be certainly curious one to see, primarily because as much as Spa is known for outracing both physical and virtual alike, for some of our newcomers, for example, it might be quite... to me, it feels like maybe some of them could feel like they've been thrown into the deep end, as it were. So we've got the likes of Kat Kisimiri, another newcomer this season in the AM class. There's also, I believe, Cal Squid, Neko Kitten, and Kagura Mashiro. Apologies in advance if any names have not been correctly pronounced. I did go over a little form we have, but I'm silly.
I'm sure it'll be a learning experience for us as we go, but I'm sure we'll get there in the end. You see our drivers now just on their way out. Yeah, speaking of being in at the deep end as well, I feel like this is a difficult track to start the season off with. There's a lot of places here you've got to be very precise. Eau Rouge especially, and that only becomes more important in these difficult track conditions.
Yeah, I know that as we see Ace of the Empire, another season returnee in the Queen's Design Pan and Formula Ferrari 296. Very nice livery there. Just coming through out of corn into the right left. Always forget the name of some of the corners around Spa-Francorchamps. Surprising how sometimes corners may seem simple at first, but it's the little things that catch you out. I know that the exit here, I believe, is that the corner that's called Stavolo, or is it the slight bend here?
No, that is Stavolo. I think this next part is called Coup Paul Fieri, and then Blanchimont after that.
Oh yeah, good old Curve Paul Frere, then into Blanchimont.
That's it.
Probably one of the most challenging and high-speed corners on the track, but also generally in racing. I know from my own experience in other racing series that, at least in the BMW, my usual go-to, the rear can get a little spicy through Blanchimont.
It can. And it doesn't help that if you've got any kind of overspeed, it's very tempting to try and get an overlap through that corner, but also very difficult to do anything good with that overlap without just bidding you and the other person into the wall.
Yeah, it's not as far as fame and infamy speaks for itself. A track that has existed for, I believe, over a century now, I believe. Could be incorrect.
Yeah, you're right. Opened in 1921, I believe.
Indeed. Although I believe its current form in its Grand Prix circuit has been used from 2007, if I am reading Wikipedia correctly. So
that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a look here at Midnight Hurricane as well. Third place in Pro last season, of course.
Yeah, quite a strong showing from Midnight Hurricane and the rest of the X-Ring team last season. Quite a few of them are really on the money quite quickly. And
they
given
really are.
The likes of Lucas Licton and Ruby Nakamata, unfortunately absent today due to other commitments, I believe.
That's right.
Very impressive showing from the team as a whole and also the individual drivers. So wondering, my curiosity at the moment is, can they set themselves up a good foundation for the rest of the season? This is as we see Midnight Hurricane get a bit of oversteer out of that left-right chicane. I do forget the name at the moment. Turns 13 and 14. Not an ideal start to qualifying, but with 15 minutes to go, they should be able to get back round again and get the laps in.
Commentator's curse, definitely not wasting time getting started with 2025, clearly. Following Mosong now, coming around through Blanchimont, I believe we're approaching the point where these are flying laps and not out laps. I think that's the case for Mosong here actually, so we should start seeing that board start filling up soon.
Yeah, Musong, another one of the drivers previously part of the X-Ring. I don't know if they are still the case at this moment in time. So forgive us if things are not as they should be. Let me double check our drivers listing. So, yeah.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Well, you see that as well. We've got lap times rolling in as well. You see Mosong there taking provisional pole with a 2-minute 18.4. Sorry, go on.
No, you're fine. We're both speaking about Musong. Last season, they were racing with X-Ring, I believe their junior team. Although according to our sign-up sheet at the moment, they are racing with DEA Demonetized.
That's good. I like that.
Certainly an interesting team name for sure.
For sure, yeah. It's a little change of scenery as well from Mosong, who was in AM last season. Finished second in AM with it was like 2 podiums throughout the season.
Yeah, I did see that they were very fast, at least in some of the track, but maybe survivability was not their strongest suit at certain parts of last season. But still an impressive performance to come in and hit the ground running pace-wise. I know that when I started the season last season, they even put me under pressure, which was interesting to see. And admittedly, I never claimed to be that fast anyway, but it was impressive to see how some of the amateurs are very comfortable with cars and can put in lap times that do challenge the pros.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a lot of the time it could be a sign of drivers who are getting to grips with the game, getting to grips with sim racing as a whole, or just trying to level up the efforts that they're getting into. As, for instance, Ruby Nakamata has been sim racing for a long time, but over the last year and a half has been putting in so much work, and yeah, culminated in 3rd last season.
Yeah, maybe not the season she would have wanted per se, but then again, with the amount of work Ruby has put in across the board, admittedly she's absent today, like I said, for aforementioned other commitments, but
yeah,
could not be more proud of Ruby as a whole. Managing to join the Samantha Town esports team.
Yep, that's right.
I forget if I get the name exactly correct.
It's definitely something like that, yeah. Yeah.
Samantha Town being a real-world racing driver with pedigree of her own, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Although we're seeing all this leaderboard fill up a lot more as well. You see Psycho Kaiser just crossing the line there, bumping up into 2nd place provisionally with a 2-minute 19.1. Still seeing a lot of drivers who aren't on the board yet. I'm wondering if we're seeing a lot of validated lap times, people just running a little bit wide, again, because of those difficult track conditions. They're improving. You can see in the top right of your screen there, where it says fast, that said green before, so there is more grip than before, so that's more speed for the people who have put laps in, and hopefully enough grip to just support the car into staying on the track for the drivers who haven't so far.
Indeed. As we previously saw, Lucas Licton finish their fast lap with a 2:18.7, 2/10 off Musong at the moment. Like you were saying, the grip levels coming up in the track, more rubber is being put down in these early morning hours of the track, 6:08 AM local time, and we're riding on board with a Isaac Umbrus, well known in the Vtracc community as well as other Track.eu events, but this season driving for Technoburst. I believe they're USA division by the looks of the sign-up sheet.
Yeah, see that at the bottom right of the screen as well. Technoburst Racing USA for Isaac Umbrus. Veteran of Track.eu competition, but still coming back from a season away, I believe. Isn't that right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Although driving his favourite German machine, the Mercedes AMG 2020.
I'm sure that'll be satisfying down the straights here. And equaling that satisfaction, Midnight Hurricane as well jumps up into pole position. 2 minutes 18.4.
Not much between them and Musong. 4:47 versus 4:95. So the laps has definitely started to come in as the sun comes up, the track grips up. Only a slight 5 km/h breeze today, so nothing that should really upset the GT3s too much. Obviously, these are modern GT3 race cars, so aerodynamics do have a small portion to play, but primarily I've always felt that it's more so when you're following another car rather than any atmospheric or weather changes.
Yeah, definitely. And having like a headwind through difficult corners or a tailwind on the straights as well. It makes a small difference, but definitely hard to feel when you're driving.
So we quickly switch on board. As we quickly switch to Big E Hugs from Vtracc, a new competitor for this season, driving the BMW M4 GT3 with what I believe is a Zenless Zone 0 inspired livery.
It's a nice looking livery. Although I do have to correct you quickly, the team seems to be VCAM and not VRAM.
Oh, VCAM. Oh, forgive me.
That's all good.
I'm getting old.
That's all good.
Forgive me, I'm getting old. I couldn't read properly.
It's all good. And here we see teammate to Aston Yampire as well, I believe. Queensland Pan Formula, Eric Gregis.
Yes. Yeah, Eric Van Greg Regis, another VTuber in the race community. Been a bit MIA recently due to some unfortunate technical problems, I believe. but they seem to be back in force, driving again, hoping to build up their own confidence and have a good season. I've shared the car with Vanguard before, certainly some with a lot of potential. It's just, like with anything, it's just building up that little bit of confidence, a little bit here, a little bit there. It takes time, a lot of this stuff.
It does, but that seems to be what Eric Gregus is making the most of at the moment. Currently the first driver, not within a second of pole position. It looks like that's not going to last long. Actually, I can just see Aston Empire improve as well across the line, but no position change there.
Yeah, roughly 5/10 off the leader there. Still a very good lap time around Spa-Francorchamps, because it's all about, with the intensity that exists around Spa, you've obviously, as we see Vanguard come through the bust chicane onto the start-finish straight. We are using the F1 style start-finish straight here, not the endurance one, which goes downhill towards Eau Rouge and Raidillon.
That's right. See Eric Gregus there across the line as well, now within that second window of pole position.
We switch to the Wild Things Bentley of Ivano Ikim Ali Baram Senshai. Apologies, Ivano, if I've just butchered your name. I am not very good at these things. But someone that's another veteran of the Tractor EU series.
Definitely a household name, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe not always appearing at the top of the tables where they perhaps maybe like to be, but someone that's certainly competent by all means. Comfortable with a lot of cars, a lot of relative experience, perhaps limited only by hardware from some of the conversations I've had with them publicly.
Well, I think there's somebody said about a driver who can just consistently hang in there, especially in a field with some very capable drivers. You know, being someone who can just consistently score points will get you a long way, even in that environment like that.
It does carry a lot of weight, especially in some of the longer races. Our races this season are still the 60-minute format with a single pit stop for mandatory tyre change. Yes, mandatory tyre change.
A small element of strategy there as well to unfold during the race.
Indeed, because do you decide to go for a dead even 50-50 split of the race time, or do you decide to get a little bit funky, do 60-40, 70-30? Its tyres usually should last roughly around an hour-long stint, but you very rarely will be needing to run a full tank of fuel in this series.
No, I think the tyre life question in a series like this is more a question of how do I spend the tyres faster to gain more lap time, rather than how do I nurse them.
Yeah, because with, for example, if you were to do a 50-50 even split, you've got 30 minutes either side of that pit stop to extract as much performance as you can from that car without going overboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, as we ride on board with Lucas Licton, let's briefly switched away to G Fox Foxington. It's a very different livery to what Lucas was running last season from Team Mofu Mofu, although Phoenix Racing Tuber Academy G Fox livery looks pretty spicy on that BMW.
Yeah, nice and fiery. Just try and help set the tone for a nice and fiery lap that puts Foxington up into third in AM right now as well. I did think that was a Spyro on the side of the car, Spyro the Dragon, that little purple blob, but it is not.
That would be quite the retro throwback for some of us here. But yeah,
definitely, yeah.
Although Lucas very much seemed to be taking liberties out of Stavolo there.
Yeah, but it hasn't invalidated the lap, so this is still going to count. It's still up on the delta at the moment.
So I guess, again, because one thing I know from both ACC and also other race series is that the track limits around Spa in certain areas can be very strict, because
they can, yeah.
As much as we love to maximise the corner exit and such, but some track limits are incredibly strict in some places.
They are, especially in the places where there's nothing to enforce besides the track limits. We see
Indeed,
Lucas Lick
although-
making an improvement there too.
Yeah, so 217.725. So if the stewards say it's legal, who are we to argue? They're clearly taking advantage of knowing exactly where the track limits are around here in that Porsche 911 992.
Definitely, but I guess that's part of what makes race winning preparation is knowing where the limits are and having the track limit thresholds in your plan for the race.
Definitely. It's certainly a conversation that pops up a few times, both in, not so much in Track.eu, but generally across racing, both real world and virtual, is that racing drivers are paid to find every advantage they can. And if that means skirting the boundaries with things like track limits, then that is part of the job. As much as it may annoy stewards, I should know, I have done some stewarding work in the past. But
Sure, yeah.
that's what is expected, so it's just finding the balance.
That is very much the game as it's been set out as well. Although speaking of changing the game a little bit, Midnight Hurricane was driving a BMW M4 last season and is now here in a Porsche. Same car as Lucas Lichten up ahead. Lucas Lichten, of course, very experienced with this car, whilst Midnight Hurricane is here figuring it out, presumably for the first time.
Yeah, that would be our presumption, although based on Midnight's season last season, by no means should it be a significant hurdle for them.
No, definitely not.
Plus, in that very fetching white and blue, almost metallic white and blue livery that the X-Ring cars seem to have.
Yeah, it's a really satisfying colour scheme.
Yeah, and with the shine that the car has, it looks very good in the morning sunshine.
It does. Yeah, completely agree.
As they go, 400 slower than Lucas Lichten with a 217.765. Not much in it at all.
Now, especially on a
looks
track
like-
this long.
Yeah.
This is one of the longer lap times in ACC, so the small, that just makes the difference smaller, doesn't it?
Indeed, it's a 7.004 kilometre long track around here, based on the FIA grading system and how they choose to measure the track length. Because I believe it was something that the FIA only sanctioned tracks between a certain length.
Yeah, that's right.
So we see Zul Akihara, another regular that's returning for this season with Technoburst Racing, albeit in the Ferrari 296 this time. Looked a little bit wide out of, or through Blanchimont, unless that was just the net code, just being a little bit wobbly. We do have international drivers, of course.
Yeah, a lot of latency. It is an improvement. It is bump up into 12th overall. Well, I do kind of agree with what you said. Like, just looking at the chicane, especially, looked like Zul Akihara was just carrying a little bit too much speed into it and had to do more of the car rotation late in the chicane, which is not the dream.
Yeah. Oh, as Zul does get very wide over the top of Rouge Radion.
Yeah. I think that establishes a good question as well for going into the race, is what kind of setups the drivers using. Spa, of course, has a very high average speed, which means that your downforce setup changes a lot, especially the drag.
It's all about, indeed, as I remember from doing the Spa 24 last year, it's all about trying to balance the compromises, because the first and third sectors are such high speed where you want to minimize your drag as much as you can. As Mousson goes across the line with a 217.687, just sneaking in another slightly faster lap than Lucas Lichten, who is approaching the bus stop chicane. I have not been watching the deltas, but will Lucas be able to improve and snatch back that pole position?
I must confess, I always watch the deltas, but I never like to comment on them. Not commentators curse them, but no such danger this time.
217.505. A whole 1.8. Yeah, 0.1. Just nearly 2/10 faster than Mousson there in the Mercedes. So Lucas definitely taken advantage. Just waiting for the last of our drivers to finish. Ace of the Empire currently P4, roughly 9/10 off our leader. What will she be able to do as she comes through the bus stop onto the start-finish straight?
Does look good.
The
start finish line, and that is a 4/10th improvement.
That's still P4, but as an improvement, it's an improvement. It's the Ivano in P11. And I believe that's all barring a couple drivers left to qualify, left to finish their laps.
Yeah, looks like it's just Dreamfox at the moment, left on a valid running lap at the moment. Never mind, looks like Neko Kitten as well is coming around to wrap up as well. Looking at 2:29.
And that is it. The last of our drivers has finished the qualifying. So, to round up our season opener, we have our grid for today's event as follows. We have on pole, which, no surprise at least to me, Lucas Lichten, followed by Musong in the Mercedes AMG GT3. Midnight Hurricane in third for X-Ring. Forgive me, I'm forgetting the team names now. With Ace of the Empire in fourth for Panon Formula. Fifth, we have Biggie Hugs in the BMW M4 GT3, a newcomer to the season and an impressive start nonetheless. Psycho Kaiser in sixth, followed by Isaac Umbrus in seventh. A good performance from the Techno Burst cars, despite the differing machinery. P8 for Van Greg in the Aston Martin. P9, our AM leader, our pole sitter, maybe Battery in the BMW for X-Ring. P10, Kenneth VT in the Porsche 992 GT3. Now, following on from that, we have Ivano Shensoi, P11, Zulak Hakikarov in P12, and forgive me if I do not want to butcher their name, in P11. As we scroll down... Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. As we go now down to the rest of our AM drivers. Mashiro in the Mercedes AMG GT3 in P2, G-Fox Foxington P3 in AM, Renai Dream Fox in the Audi for X-Ring, haven't seen an Audi in a while. Sat there in P4, Kat Kisimiri in the Nissan GTR in P5 in AM, Sea Squid in P6, Kaito Nasa P7 for Techno Burst USA. Oh, bit of a car change there, apologies for that one. Imentrix Zane's King of Spinala in P7. Ian the Terrible P8 in Ford Mustang, forgive me. And as we saw, Neko Kitten towed to the pit lane to start from the pit lane there. I believe Kenneth VT has done the same as well. So that's two pit lane starters there.
Yeah, presumably just didn't click drive in time, maybe stuck with the validating in the setup screen.
Oh, that is the one thing I always find annoying myself.
Yeah, especially because it's up against the odds of the temptation to try and maximize your tyre temperature by doing it as late as possible. Because if you do it too late, you miss your opportunity to drive, start with the pit lane. That's me speculating, I don't know that's what happened, but I have made that mistake. I still feel the pain, so I want to talk about it.
Oh, you're not the only one who's made that mistake. I think the worst time I did that was an endurance race where I missed it and I had to start from the pit lane.
Oh no.
Like, that was a tough first opening double, stint having to recover from such a silly mistake. However, with a 60-minute race today, hopefully nothing of that nature befalls the rest of our drivers. As we do the long opening pace lap around the 7-kilometre Spa-Francorchamps. Hopefully should give our drivers time to get a little bit more heat warmth into the tyres, ready for what could be a very challenging open lap.
Definitely will be tricky. Not only is the track still cold, so it'll be difficult to get tyres up to temperature, but there's not many great opportunities to get the brakes up to temperature as well, so there's always a risk that they'll be cold going into turn 1.
Yes, and given the high-speed nature and very aggressive braking zones into the likes of the La Source, Hairpin, Fruto Rouge Radion, and after the Camel Straight into the Lacombe section, Yeah, cold brakes are going to be something alongside the tyres to bear in mind for the first couple laps. You don't want to be too aggressive because that's how mistakes can happen.
Costly mistakes at that, especially at this stage of the race.
Indeed, and whilst some people may be confident in recovery drives, it's not something that many enjoy as a driver.
It's also
just progressing a little bit.
No, I think that's relatable for everyone. It's no one's plan A, is it?
Absolutely not. But there's many different ways and can be very challenging to survive lap 1 depending on circumstances, because anything can happen in racing, and that's why we do it.
That unpredictability, that surprise, yeah. We do love it.
Long run down now past Curva Paul Frere. Soon our drivers should be forming into a double file start. Just maintaining consistent pacing speed for the time being. See there, Midnight Hurricane in they're trying to get a last little bit of extra tyre heat into the car before the start.
That's a lot of tyre heat. That's very aggressive heating there from Midnight Hurricane.
Indeed. But can be essential. That little bit of extra heat, that little bit of extra braking capacity can go a long way in the early part of the race.
Completely agree. Looks like our driver's just got the call to form up now as well. See them settling into 2 lanes there, off the back of Lucas Lichten's rear wing.
Indeed, although a weirdly large gap as it stands at the moment between Lucas and the rest of the field. However, for the sake of video games, collision is not enabled until we get the green flag, as we are on the start-finish straight, ready for the 2025 Season 1 Series opener of the Vtracc VTuber Challenge. And we... Oh, was I incorrect about our starting point? Are we going green?
No, we do start on the downhill. Yeah, after the hairpin. So our turn 1 will be a rouge.
Apologies to the viewers there. I was all ready for them to go. As we round the La Source hairpin, the grid forms up. A bit of a challenging one for those further back in the field. As now we're preparing to go green. What will our season opener give us? On the downhill towards Lucas, right against the wall.
Green light, green light.
And we are green. Lucas with an early advantage. Midnight Hurricane side by side with Musong there. To go up the Eau Rouge up the hill towards Eau Rouge Radion. Musong very wide in that Mercedes there. And still keeps the advantage. As Ace of the Empire is all over the rear of Midnight Hurricane there. And with briefly 3 wide behind as well. Ace of the Empire very aggressive there over Midnight Hurricane's rear, trying to find a way past with the early advantage. Musong still in P2, haven't yet rescinded the position after the track cut over Eau Rouge. Also Midnight, there's a bit of contact between Midnight and Ace of the Empire there, as Midnight was forced very tight into Rivage. Nothing intentional, of course, just some of the little scraps of racing. Drivers are still struggling to warm up the cars. Again, Ace in the Empire looking very aggressively, whilst we have Psycho Kaiser and the rest of the field behaving themselves behind. Apologies to the other drivers in the field, there's just a little bit of battles going on, and sometimes it'd be hard to keep track of everybody. But the majority of the field, at least for this part of the open match, seems to be behaving themselves. Kenneth VT and Echo Kitten are now out of the pit lane. A good chunk behind the field, but 60 minutes to go. Plenty of time to make up for missing the start. Riding on board with Psycho.
Especially with the kind of battles we've been seeing so far as well, that's all going to cost time, and that just plays into an advantage for Kenneth VT and Echo Kitten trying to catch up. Yeah,
and also Lucas Lichten there, giving him the chance to run away with the lead. As Ace in the Empire is still very aggressive. As we see, that was Vanguard looking a little bit, trying to see if they can find a move into Blanchimont there, and Psycho Kaiser. Oh, as we got contact further back between 3, 4 cars. Bang, Greg. Multiple cars, in fact. Apologies. Multiple cars involved in that, slowing up a good portion of the field. As our producer goes in for a little replay, a little love tap there from the Mercedes into the Aston Martin, and then a bit of a checkup as well. As we see, very. I did see quite wisely.
It's a fairly simple incident that just ends up making a roadblock, and everyone gets caught up in it.
Indeed, hopefully that for our drivers it hasn't provided too much damage there, but that was quite the unexpected checkup quite early on. So that's put quite a substantial gap between the top 5 and top 6, sorry, and the rest of the field.
Yeah, so we saw someone else going off there in Radion as well. Whilst Eric Regis tries to get back to a racing start. Cal Squid here appears to have found the wall out of Eau Rouge as well.
Indeed, and not as well as trying to rejoin, although at first glance not a rejoin I would be comfortable with, but until we've seen what happened up the hill into Eau Rouge. Contact there with... I did miss what car that was, unfortunately.
I believe that was Zolakara, but just looks like not realised there's an overlap.
Yeah. Eau Rouge Radion, not a car you really wish to go too wide in. Cal Squid, they're still stuck at Eau Rouge Radion. Not sure whether they are... Oh, they've towed to the pit lane with reasons unknown. So you go back to the lead now. I believe either Midnight Hurricane has either regained the position, or Musong did at least let them past again. But Musong's still very close there, at the back of Midnight Hurricane's Porsche, allowing Lucas, at least in this first opening laps, to get a 2.5 second gap already. So you were right about the battling April. It's not something that you really want to do quite so early on. But Musong being very aggressive, trying to find a move around Midnight Hurricane. Was that a little bit of contact between the two?
I believe it was,
Looked a little bit touchy-feely there between the Porsche and the Mercedes of the two, allowing Aces of the Empire to close up the gap a little bit more.
And additionally, Biggie Hugs there as well, running out that 4-car train, chasing down for second place at the moment.
Indeed. Wondering how Biggie Hugs is going to show themselves this season, whether they're a patient driver, or whether they'll be looking and more than eager to grab any little advantage that they may get. Because sometimes you don't need much of an advantage, it just needs to exist.
That's true. Time gaps don't really matter in the end, do they? Just positions.
Like the old phrase from, to age myself here, the old phrase from the original Fast and the Furious film, "Dude, I almost had you." It's a fun phrase to say, as we see Zul Akihara round on the outside of after Blanchimont. I wonder what happens to Zul there as we go on board with Van Greg and I believe Isaac Umbras? Mercedes, I think it is.
Yes,
Isaac
it is,
Umbras.
Yeah.
Trying to go too wide through Lacombe into Malmedy. Very good driving from these two. Obviously, well known and respected.
Eric Greg's was in that recovery drive, and I think Umbras put on the defensive there, but it just wasn't enough.
Indeed. Maybe Isaac was Isaac caught up in that initial kerfuffle?
I don't.
Slowed up quite a portion of the field.
He was. Okay, cool. Heard from our broadcaster that I think Umbras was involved in that early incident.
Yeah, so both of them on the recovery drive. Tough for these two, I think, but Van Greg's certainly showing the early advantage there, getting a lot out of that Queen's Design Planet Formula Aston Martin.
Probably wants to try and keep it that way. The more they battle with each other, the less progress they're going to make up through the field.
Indeed, sometimes it's worth taking the smaller loss and pace for the bigger long-term advantage.
That's true. It is one of those equations that's a lot simpler for the car in front as well. The car in front, of course, would rather just not fight and maximise pace. I can relate, but of course, you know, you can't fault the driver behind for not seeing it that way.
Oh yeah, it's even if it's a team event where you've got two cars, sometimes sometimes you can be those that have team orders and, you know, don't fight, or you can just be like, gloves off, just keep it sensible. I believe was its acronym, higher rules, which not the phrase I probably use, but I guess if it works, it works.
I guess it also depends on the team, doesn't it? Every team imagine has a different approach to this. I've always been a big fan of you coordinate with your teammate over the radio during the race. Which might just mean you call truce for 10 minutes and then battle for the next 10 minutes after that, but...
Yeah. It does depend on what stage of the race we're in. And although the pit window is open, most people wouldn't really be planning to pit just yet. Although Zul Akihara, after an incident I believe we missed, is in the pit lane, as we see Mashiro going quite deep there. Well, they managed to get the overlap on Renemy Arts. Renai Dreamfox. Well, Mercedes looking very sideways out of Malmedy there into Rivage.
Yeah, so Dreamfox still holding that position pretty comfortably for now, but still a decent amount of pressure. That Mercedes no doubt looking very big in that mirror.
Very aggressive driving style it appears from Mashiro.
Yeah, we were talking about earlier about just maximising the track limits, making the most of it, and getting every advantage you can. Well, it looks like advantage Audi through this section as Dreamfox pulls out a little bit of a gap there.
Yes. Oh, as we switch on board. Well. Yeah, Midnight Hurricane, Ace of the Empire, and Musong. What on earth happened to them? As I'm loading up the replay there, Midnight Hurricane, did they just get a little bit excitable? Oh, the car got grabbed by the curbing there, by the looks of it.
Yeah, it looks like it. Or just some kind of little slide or something.
Yeah.
Look how much that gap has grown as well. It's flat out for the whole section. You can just see how that one little exit mistake has just zapped so much of Hurricane's momentum.
It's one of the big challenges here around Spa, as we see Van Greg looking, maybe trying to go side by side there, a little bit of contact with the Ubitia BMW there. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing names, I will do my homework. And getting the advantage there into the bus stop chicane.
Definitely well held for both drivers there. I saw both of those cars sideways through that corner, so good on them for keeping them pointing the right way.
Van Greg definitely looking to push the early advantage with the car's performance and stability. Oh, as we see... Oh dear. Ubicia's BMW round there on the exit curbing of the La Source hairpin.
Was that contact or was that just loss of traction?
I think that was just a loss of traction from touching the yellow sausage curb.
Yeah,
I believe.
Okay. That makes
BMW
sense.
with quite a bit of front end damage there.
Yeah.
Oh,
on an aero heavy track like this, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for the other Technoburst, one of the other Technoburst drivers there. Zul Akihara down in 21st there, one lap behind everybody after an early incident which we missed. Now also, unfortunately, having a drive-through as well. I presume that would, imagine that would be speeding in the pit lane.
I imagine so, yeah.
No steward would ever let you off with.
No. Fairly open shot case, that one. But also a very easy mistake to make, especially when you have an early accident. You want to minimise how much time you lose to it. Or even just if you're trying to slow down for the speed limit with a damaged car.
Indeed, I've been guilty of that myself a few times. As we see Ivano Shinsoi all over the back of Zul Akihara. Now, whilst typically GT rules are, the blue flags are advisory, I believe if I double check our rule book here, we have a slightly different blue flag system.
It'll be interesting to see what this is. It doesn't look like Zul Akihara has much intention of letting anyone through right now.
Yeah, I believe that is Ivano giving Zul a bit of a flash to say, come on, I know you've had a rough start, but let me through please, it ain't worth this fighting.
Yeah.
But maybe Zul is seeing red.
Exactly.
Yeah, as Ivano tries to go around the outside there into the bus stop chicane. And yeah, Zul returning to the pit lane to serve the penalty. Hopefully not another repeat offence, as switch to Kaito Nasset in the other Technoburst USA car. I don't believe they've been involved in any instance so far, but apparently seem to be having a quiet race for the time being.
Well, quiet is consistent. You know, quiet's probably a good idea right now. See Midnight Hurricane here trying to get back up to third.
Indeed, sort of trying to see if they could spook us in the Empire. A little bit of rubbing there. Let's say rubbing is racing, but both drivers giving each other a good degree of respect.
Yeah, puts us on the defensive, but she manages to make that defensive line and holds on to third for the time being.
Indeed, it's quite challenging when you... Maybe not so much of a problem at this early stage of race, but later on as the marbles appear on the outskirts of the track, that could be a lot more challenging. As we see Midnight Hurricane very, very wiggly out of Speaker's Corner, or No Name. So many different names for some of these corners, I never keep track of which one is in current use. Maybe something to wonder how aggressive Midnight had to go with their setup, and whether that's doing them a disservice, but still a bit early to tell.
It's possible, yeah, because a rear engine car like that, a lot of the weight is the rear axle, of course, so that inclines it to want a lot of rear wing, whereas Spa invites you to be brave with running less of it. We might just be seeing the difference in experience with the Porsche there between Lucas Lichten, who knows the car very well, and Midnight Hurricane, who has, well, started the season in that car for the first time here, as far as we're aware.
Indeed.
Midnight Hurricane, of course, a very capable driver, but might just still be figuring it out.
Yes, it always takes time for us to get accustomed to something we're not used to. We're riding on board with Isaac Umbrus, I believe, caught up in the earlier incident that caused the check-up out of the bus stop chicane here. Maybe not having the race they wanted, but there's still 45 minutes to go, 45 minutes of racing. Plenty of time for things to change.
There is, and being displaced further down the order early on also means that you've got a lot of potential for just making progress up the field. You've got a bunch of people in front of you who you will be faster than them if you can just stay consistent. So it's a case of keeping your head cool and not letting those issues get to you.
Sometimes, even if you've not got the raw pace, consistency is key, so there's struggle around you.
Yeah, definitely. Which incidentally is another strength that Lucas Lichten is very famous for.
Yeah, consistency goes a long ways, be it a sprint race or an endurance race.
It does.
It's definitely taking advantage of that as we pop on board with Van Greg, trying to get back onto the tail of Van side. The two Catboy VTubers in action, but hopefully no one will fight each other. So we see the BMW there of battery off. Maybe just a little bit too much curving as we quick look at the replay. Unfortunately, we didn't see the incident itself, but it definitely looks like potentially they took maybe a bit too much curving, if I were to hazard a guess, to try and right the car in the current replay. Not an ideal thing.
No.
Perhaps a little bit of ambition of adhesion as it stands.
Yeah. Looked like a difficult turnaround as well, but nonetheless, back to this battle for 10th overall. Ivano Shensoy leading this train of 3 cars, followed by Eric Gregus and Isaac Umbrus.
Yeah. Isaac Umbrus slowly creeping back onto the pair of them.
Yeah.
Maybe not making the most aggressive moves like Van Greg was, but again, sometimes see how things play out. How will Ivano handle?
If you see how this plays out here, Gregus you will be taking a huge tow right here. That gap is 2 tenths right now. I make it, so that that'll be a good little speed boost.
Yeah, one would hazard a guess at 2 tenths back. Depends whether Van Greg will be able to gain much advantage there, because it's good on the straight but as soon as you get to the corner like Blanchimont, you still get the dirty air from the high speed nature of that corner. So not quite anything this time around, but we'll have to see how this battle develops. Isaac there is just keeping in touch, just keeping a good gap to the action, enough to make sure that he doesn't feel the dirty air too much. Van Greg being very aggressive on the braking there with that Aston Martin. Ivano's just pulling out just enough of a small advantage on exit there. However, with, as I previously saw with Battery, unfortunately having a moment there in the corner names, it's escaping my head today.
In Lake
section
Kuma,
of the track.
yeah. There you go, yeah.
It did promote Mashiro and Dreamfox up 2 positions into first and second as it stands in the AM class respectively, 7th and 8th overall. Now one thing to bear in mind, both the viewers and some of the drivers, that although the car ahead may be for track position, they might not necessarily be in the same class, so it's might not even be worth fighting sometimes. But a lot of the battles we've seen so far at the moment are between cars in the same class.
One of the things that we saw last week in the Vtracc challenge, Track GT challenge, that's the one I'm looking for, is cars in different classes who effectively end up having to race for no points difference between them.
As we see Renai Dreamfox with a pop up with a drive-through, I would presume as they have not hit, that would be due to track limit violations.
It will be.
Frank is shown very strict, as we mentioned earlier in qualifying, trying to find every little advantage, but sometimes maybe a little bit too much. Now, fortunately for Renai, she doesn't have to serve that penalty straight away, I don't believe, but that will hinder her performance and her race going into the last stages, especially after the pit stop.
Yeah, well, I want to look out for here as well is that Eric Gregg is here. We saw him run wide through Blanchimon last lap in the dirty air, which could cause a track cut, but playing it safe this time as well.
Indeed,
So, yeah.
Although we see Ivano very deep in the bus stop, allowing Van Greg to allow him to really close the gap as we go on the run down the start finish towards the La Source hairpin. Is Van Greg close enough and ballsy enough to make a move into La Source? Now this time thinks the better of it, but that has allowed Isaac Umbras to also catch up to the pair of them. They're all within a train hour of roughly a second, I believe.
Yeah, look at the deltas. I'd make that all within a second as well, which I'm sure will make Overreach and Radion nice and emotional. Looks like they all managed to make it nice and clean. Yeah, exactly. And the dirty air is probably where cutting the track by mistake, it just becomes the easiest. That loss of grip can really trip you up.
Absolutely. I definitely had a few track limit violations during the Spa 24 last year, I know that much.
Oh yeah.
Poor BMW I was in. Yeah, it's just so easily done here. Although speaking of consistency, although Lucas may have nearly a 4-second gap on the cars behind him, it hasn't really changed. It's just been a consistent 3.8 gaps between him, Musong, and again the gap back to Ace in the Empire and Midnight Hurricane. So,
yeah.
Lucas perhaps just on a cruise at the moment.
I imagine so. I imagine we're also seeing the pace just settle in a little bit here between these drivers, so these kinds of situations are exactly why getting a move done on the first lap can be quite important sometimes. So when the lap time stabilise and everyone's just running their race like this, well, it's all about where you end up after the battle. And this time Lucas Lichten's come out on top.
Outside of any troubles with traffic, it should be plain sailing in theory.
Let's see here, Psycho Kaiser. Is that putting pressure on the Biggie Hugs? Yes.
How old Biggie Hugs, a newcomer to this season, while Psycho Kaiser a regular of ours in Techno Burst. How will they cope with the pressure? Because sometimes you don't even need to be fastest. We see Ivano deep again into the bus stop.
Yeah,
allowing Van Greg and Isaac Umbras past.
Yeah.
So Ivano not giving up easily by the looks of it.
He's staying close, but not trying to get it alongside.
Probably thought the better of it. Psycho Kaiser trying to spook Biggie Hugs there into the coup chicane through Malmedy, as we see Midnight Hurricane again off and very slow there. Midnight Hurricane dropped quite a few positions there. What happened to Midnight? Was it again the Porsche?
So we're braking for Lekum here. All looks normal so far. Of course, we've seen this car lose the back end around here before, I believe. Taking a lot of curb.
On the left.
Very gentle there. Oh, and the
And
back
just
end
the
just
rear-
steps out that exit curb, yeah.
Yeah, the exit curb of Malmedy really doing Midnight a disservice there.
Mm.
Not an ideal opening seat starter for Midnight Hurricane in X-Ring. I'm forgetting everything today, I do apologise.
So good.
But again, 37 minutes to go. Still chance to build a good recovery there.
Yeah, Hurricane, of course,
As
finishing
tough as it
4th
might
last
be.
season. Reina Miata being missing this season means that it wouldn't be unreasonable to predict Midnight Hurricane taking 3rd in the championship, but if that's going to happen, then this isn't really the way to do it.
No, they're going to need one heck of a recovery driver. Because Psycho go very wide there. And Reina Miata again in the background there, all over the place.
Not Reina Miata, Midnight Hurricane, sorry.
Midnight Hurricane, apologies. The Psycho Kaiser went a little bit deep into the bus stop, but again, the Porsche of Midnight Hurricane really not having a good time there.
I imagine it's just a compounding issue. Maybe there's some damage. We did see a wall touch there coming out of Malmedy, so could there be some damage just creeping in and starting to cause a problem for that car?
Yeah, well, I remember that the Porsche can be quite an error-sensitive vehicle. It's usually the least powerful of the GT3s in modern service. It's naturally aspirated flat-six engine, roughly pushing about 500 or so horsepower. I think maybe close to 550 in the later variants, but
Yeah.
so it's a car that you have to rely on nailing your corners and being very consistent in the more challenging technical sections due to its design. And again, Reina Miata very loose, so perhaps it's a combination of damage and tyre wear.
Actually, I think I know what it is. I've been talking about this issue, thinking that Lucas Lichten will demonstrate it, and he never did, so I'm feeling very validated right now. The fuel tank on that Porsche is over the front axle. So,
Yes, I always forget.
the weight distribution changes massively throughout a stint on that car, so it could be as the fuel's burned off, that weight comes off the front axle. It's now all over the rear, and that's tipping the car into an oversteer balance. It's one of the most challenging things about running that car over a long stint is just managing the weight distribution.
Yeah, compared to the likes of the AMG Mercedes we see here from Isaac Umbrus, the front big heavy V8 engine in the front of that Mercedes with its very long nose, and I believe the fuel tank is in the rear where the boot would be on the road car.
Yeah, that's right.
So, whilst the weight usually comes out of the rear of the car on most of the vehicles, or as central as they can physically make it, Midnight Hurricane must be suffering from, I guess, what was said to me once was the Porsche syndrome, with the weight coming out of the front end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is what we're looking at.
By no means a bad car, it's just every car has its nuances.
I think it's more just, it takes a lot more active driving to manage it in the Porsche than it would in any other car. It is probably the most technical challenge in the grid.
Yeah, I know that from someone that's driven a lot of the BMW that usually it's not the BMW, for example, being from another front engine car doesn't have such an issue, but even that has its own nuances. The turbos, the twin turbo inline six can be very sudden and snappy when it delivers its power when it wants to be.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially if you've got quite a tightly locked differential.
Yeah, that's very true.
I've fouled that a few times.
Well, I think we all have, yeah.
And again, even the big NA V8 motor inside that Mercedes AMG can cause problems of its own. So all cars will have the nuances on the grid. It's just how can our drivers manage them?
That's exactly it. So that's exactly the difference that we're here to try and figure out in, well, I guess in a race like this.
Because not all cars will suit the drivers. Everyone has their own unique driving style.
Although one compliment to Midnight Hurricane, currently holding the fastest lap of the race at a 2:17.5. That is faster than even Lucas Lichten has done. So not just a very capable car in the right hands, but when things line up, then it's a winning recipe for Midnight Hurricane as long as things stay lined up.
Indeed, I wonder when that lap was done. One would assume before rather than after their incidents.
I presume so, yeah. It could be that sweet spot of when the balance tipped from understeer to being just right, and now we've been watching it tip into oversteer.
that front end struggling for grip whilst the rear's like, I've got all the power, wait.
Yeah.
Typically why I've seen, at least from the real world racing and even some of the other sim racing that I've watched, that Porsche tends to do better on more the American design track, where you have perhaps lower speed corners, but they're very late apexes, allowing you just to punch the throttle on exit, whereas a lot of the European circuits, like Spa-Francorchamps, have a lot of technical corners.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
With its, I guess, unique design amongst the rest of the grid, one could argue, as we see, I believe that is, who was that going to the pit lane? Was that Vicky Hooks or Psycho Kaiser? It was Psycho coming in for their one and only mandatory pit stop. Well, hopefully their only pit stop.
Yeah, I imagine so.
As our drivers today do have to do a mandatory fuel, well, tyre pit stop. You can, of course, run your car full with fuel.
I wouldn't recommend it, but you can, yeah.
Indeed, I wouldn't recommend it on a short sprint race like this. But it can be done if that is your preference. However, with how ACC does the juggling of the car's performance and how the fuel affects that, it's often not recommended to run a full tank.
Yeah, it's just that difficult question of how much of a safety net do you want? How much flexibility do you want to be able to just push your pit stop a little bit later in case you want it for strategic reasons? So if you see rain forecasted like we did in the Vtracc GT3 Cup last week. No such problem today though. That weather forecast is staying dry until 30 minutes into the future.
And it's not like we have a crystal ball. The information the drivers see is the same information we see. So 30 minutes not head start is about all the information we get, although with us being basically dead set in the middle half of the race, I don't see any reason to disbelieve that for the time being.
No, me neither.
So notice how scuffed up that Mercedes AMG of Isaac is looking there. Obviously caught up in a bit of the kerfuffle and early on they check up out of the bus stop chicane.
Yeah. Especially just over the front and rear ends, which I imagine are probably some of the more important parts of the car for aerodynamics, but
yeah, just
nonetheless,
a little bit of
confident.
Yeah, no winglets missing, fortunately, but a bit of scuffing around the front splitter and the rear diffuser may have a small but surprisingly damaging effect if not properly managed. But Isaac, someone that I know does a lot of practice for a lot of events, seems to be managing it fairly well. As we see, I believe that is Van Greg and also Isaac Umbrestead passing at the BMW of... Who was that? I missed it. I believe that might have been G-Fox. Oh, it's Neko Kitten, I believe, returning to the pit lane.
You can see that gap
a lot of
cars. As well.
Yeah, a lot of our competitors now taking to the pit lane to get their pit stops done and dusted with the second half of the race. Isaac being one of them. I always forget that we run the enduro pits in ACC.
Yeah, so definitely don't get a pit lane speeding drive-through. Or else that is a very long drive-through. That's painful. Almost as long as a lap.
Grueling.
Yeah.
It's bad enough when you're pitting just under normal circumstances, but getting a drive-through around here, as I have done, it's not enjoyable.
Oh, it's a horrible feeling. It really is. Especially with how much time you get to just meditate on that mistake you've made.
Yeah.
Because like then haven't blinked yet though, still running on those same tyres that he started the race on. See my song there in the background as well, exact same situation. No pit stop yet.
Yeah. Just managing the gap behind between himself and Musong there. Roughly 3 to 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Just keeping it civil. 10th here, a 10th there, not overdriving the car, just doing exactly what needs to be done from the lead of the race. You don't need a big gap, but you need a gap between yourself and your competitor. It's all about management in some instances rather than just raw battling. But
exactly, yeah.
Seeing how Musong drove not only last season but also the start of this race, I imagine that they'd be pushing quite hard as they pop into the pit lane behind. Lucas still yet to blink whilst others around him haven't taken their pit stops. So,
Yeah.
depending on Lucas's fuel, I would imagine that one would potentially assume that this would be their in-lap, so he's probably going to absolutely wring the neck of that Porsche, hopefully without anything befalling him.
I imagine so, yeah. Especially with seeing more of our podium contenders in the pits. We saw VT called out already, Aston and the Empire also already having done her pit stop.
I know early on I mentioned our blue flag rules here as the action is quite, at least, well, not so much quieting down, it's just going through the pit cycle and a lot of cars are spread out. Dealing with blue flags in Vtracc.eu, if you are showing the black flag, you need to be sure to not interfere with the lap of the car triggering the blue flag, i.e. the car that is chasing you down. Decrease. Oh, and just seen that Foxington has got themselves a stop-go 30 penalty. I have a hunch that either they sped in the pit lane or were speeding over the entry line. As someone that's made that mistake myself, it's an easy one to do, but is very brutal when it does hit.
Yeah, that's a difficult way to go.
Yeah, so we see Psycho Kaiser here all over the rear of Midnight Hurricane. Both of these cars have taken their pit stops, but we are not wondering how that these two will battle. Psycho Kaiser dealing with a dirtier off that Porsche there. Not really ideal. Hopefully that didn't get them off the track as well as they were. Both of them a bit deep into the bus stop actually.
Yeah. Of course, when a Hurricane just pit, so those brakes might still be warming up. It's like kind of just losing the braking performance because, of course, it's the one situation where you want to drag on the car as well, is to slow it down, but following someone else, you lose it.
They call it dirty air as it swirls up behind the car that you're following from all the aerodynamic devices. So it's because it's swirling, because it's a hotter bit of air, it doesn't allow the downforce devices on your car to work as effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
As we see Lucas Lipton finally into the pit lane, going for, I guess, a bit of a 60-40 split of the race length here, roughly.
Yeah, looks like it. Luckily sort of comfortably original lead, Aston the Empire 10 seconds behind them. And now we're just waiting to see where Lucas filters in there.
The only other cars yet to pit are Biggie Hooks, Kenneth BT, and Imantrix. Zanes. We'll see how everyone filters through at the moment. Unless Musong pit as well, because at least on my end, at least it appears that.
Yeah, Musong's fit.
Yeah, so my eyes were not deceiving me. Biggie Hooks has taken the lead, at least for the short term, yet to do their pit stop.
Yeah. Having their own little stop the count moment, I'm sure. But...
yeah, it's definitely a phrase that's come to mind a couple of times when I've been in the occasional lead of an event. It's like, stop the count, but no such luck. So what will complicate matters for some of the drivers, though, is that those that have fallen one or more laps behind as the field ebbs and flows with the pit stops and the relative abilities of the drivers, is that blue flag rules will be coming into effect. So, as I was stating before, in Vtracc.eu, it's a case of slower car is not to interfere with the faster car effectively. To decrease the risk of interfering, your main priority should be to stay predictable. If you are slower than the car behind, you need to yield the track position at a suitable spot. And the rule goes on to state things like you could lift into a heavy braking zone to allow an easy pass, taking a wider line through certain corners where applicable. It's not like F1 where it has to be done within 3 corners. It's where it is sensible and safe to do so, because the 3 corners that you have coming up, at least in the instance of F1, might not be safe, might not be sensible due to the workload on the car during those corners. As we see, Banton Craig on the rear of Isaac Umbris this time round again after the early kerfuffle. Will these two play nice with one another? Obviously they are friends outside of racing, but racing for different teams this season.
Well, there's not more satisfying than a nice, brutal race between two friends. I always love that high five moment when you come out of a good race with a good friend.
Yeah. It's especially if you're able to look at things objectively between the two, as Van Greg definitely a lot stronger on the brakes in that Aston Martin than what Isaac can do in that Mercedes. Perhaps Isaac's still struggling to get the car up to 10, whereas Van Greg is very much in tune with the Aston Martin. They're looking, at least initially, for a move into Rivage, Russell, take your pick which one you prefer. I can never remember which is accurate. Through No Name, Speaker's Corner, so many corners that Spa-Francorchamps have had different names over the years, so it's hard to keep track of which is in active use.
They have. I'm just going to keep sticking to the map I've got here, on which it is Bruxelles and Speaker's Corner. I'm just going to trust for the map I googled to be accurate.
Perhaps we should probably share the maps in future to avoid any further confusion.
Probably, but never mind. I think we're on the same page for the most part anyway. I don't think it's been too much of a problem.
Just two of them keeping things consistent. Though I hope we're seeing that Biggie Hook still is yet to pit, as Kenneth VT is now in for their pit stop. Just wondering, as well as Imantric Zanes, who, at least briefly for the time being, was leading the AM class. A little bit of a boost there for Menetrix. A long stalwart in the community and well known for their racing VTuber clips compilations. As you see, Bangred still trying to find a move on Isaac Umbris in the Mercedes there, but not quite getting it.
Yeah.
Isaac clearly stronger on exit with the Mercedes and its big old V8 motor.
Yeah.
Naturally aspirated versus, I believe, twin turbo in this Aston.
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just staying nice and close, just ready for an opportunity, but the door just isn't opening up.
Indeed. Sometimes you have to wait for the door to open as they slowly come up to G-Fox Foxington. An unfortunate moment in the race for them with their stop go 30. Not ideal for them, but still a chance for them to do a good position as we're side by side along the Camel Straight here. Who's going to have the superior braking force? Into Lacoon. Van Greg takes advantage of the situation and pulls ahead. However, passing
that move done very early there was well played even before the braking point.
Perhaps Isaac's still struggling with some damage on that Mercedes AMG.
Yeah,
So I know in previous conversations he's not keen on spending a lot of time in the pits taking all the damage, so maybe a decision that's not helped out today, but again, fortunately maybe I'll have to do a post-race written interview with any willing drivers to see what their thoughts were.
Yeah, just clarify those, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. The biggie. Right, so as it stands with 19 minutes to go, we currently have Biggie Hugs in the temporary lead, although in for their pit stop as it stands, as Lucas Lichten, I believe, currently sits second. Let's wait for our timing screen to update to see if Lucas retakes the lead. Of course, the team Mofu Purple, Porsche 992, has been started on pole and had a very clear race so far. Musong in third place, I nearly said second there, getting my numbers confused, in the AMG Mercedes, followed by Ice in the Empire, roughly 11 seconds back after the pit cycle for Vince Design Panon Formula in that good-looking purple and pink Ferrari 296 GT3, with Midnight Hurricane, who's had quite a challenging race in that Porsche 911 992 there, just beating out, I believe that was Biggie Hugs out of the pit lane.
Yeah.
So whilst we wait for our timing screen to update, indeed it has, so Midnight Hurricane is in 4th, Biggie Hugs in 5th. They are closely followed by Psycho Kaiser and Technoburst Racing. Known to some as the psychopath, but seems to be behaving themselves today at least. So Then we have the previous battle we were mentioning between Van Greg and Isaac Umbris there for Queen's Design Pan Formula and Technoburst USA respectively. And in the current lead of the Amfield in a Mercedes AMG GT3 is Kagura Mashiro. I forget where they started on the grid in qualifying. My brain is not working with me today. However, they are to round up the top 10. We have Ivano Shensoi for Wild Things Racing in the Bentley. Always nice to see a Bentley on screen. I know that another one of our admins is a huge fan of the Bentley. Then we have Kenneth VT, another Porsche 992 driver for Vitality Bagu Racing. And then on to the other parts of the Amfield, maybe Battery. Challenging race for them. Apologies for the weirdness with the camera there. Some kind of connection problem. Then we have Renai Dream Fox, I believe, P13. Then Kat Kisubiri in 14th overall, 4th in class. 15th overall, we have... I'm going to butcher their name, I do apologise greatly. The number 17 BMW of Hexotl Ubitia. Again, apologies if I butchered the name for Hexo Team. Then behind them we have Imentric Zanes, the Clip King himself, well known for Spinalla and the Spin Phone. Doing quite well. P5 overall with Lucas Lixon just making a blue flag pass on them. Then another new clip coming for the series doing reasonably well. Ian the Terrible for Bottom Boys. Quite an interesting team name, but I'll say no more. In the Ford Mustang GT3. Quite a good amateur performance for them so far. Kaito Nasa, P7 in class, 18th overall. Yeah, just making sure yeah, as we had a spin in the Nissan GTR from Kisimiri there into, I believe that was out of Speaker's Corner.
No, I think that was
Or was it? Oh, there was. Oh, it was our producer who just informed us there was contact between Kisimiri and somebody else. Yeah, I don't think our replay quite caught that moment, unfortunately.
No,
But
difficult position to be in though.
Yeah, it's quite challenging to race when you've got some of the faster traffic coming through. Quite responsibly there, backing up the car and rejoining safely to avoid any further conflict with any other traffic. Not ideal, as we're just trying to do the grid rundown, especially not for their performance yet. There's still 15 minutes to go, so there's still time for anything to happen. As we were saying, Technoburst Racing USA, the second car, Kaito Nasa there. Ferrari 296, followed by G-Fox Foxington, a bit of, again, hindered quite heavily from their earlier 30-second stop-go penalty for Phoenix Racing Super Academy. Then, following on from them, we have the number 15 BMW M4 GT3 of Neko Kitten for, again, Phoenix Racing Academy T.
I presume that's supposed to take team, but it got cut off.
Team, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a safe assumption, I'd be fair.
Yeah.
In 20th overall, then we have the unfortunate Zul Akihara for Technoburst. Not a race they would have wanted today. A couple of incidents we have missed, but sat down riding in P21. Unfortunate for them, but sometimes you do have that odd start to the season. And then rounding out our grid today, we have the Cal Squid from Bottom Boys. Again, another weird, unfortunate start for them, multiple laps down. But again, one fortunate thing with Track.eu events is that we do include drop rounds, so should you have a less than ideal performance one round, our systems automatically, deduct the worst race from your performances. I just didn't want to initially use the word worst as an example, because I don't know, just a bit of a connotation I'm not keen on.
It does
Well,
sound negative, but I do think for that it's acceptable at least.
Yeah.
Don't
Although,
worry.
again, despite all the shenanigans we've seen today, I still think that Biggie Hugs has put on quite a good performance there from VCam in that BMW. Maybe not running with some of the fastest in the field, but in their own little bubble, just keeping things consistent. And if you're on the hunt just for points and to see how the field is, it's a good place to be.
Yeah, completely agree.
You don't always have to be at the bleeding edge to be getting all the points you need. Sometimes it's just consistency. As I believe it was mentioned in the past, maybe not in European sport, maybe not in GT racing, but there was a conversation I was having with others away from GT racing about NASCAR, I believe, where somebody managed to win in a season despite not winning a single race due to how their point system worked. And I don't think our point system is scored in such a way, but
I think it is unlikely here. Possible, but probably unlikely. But I do think that seeing Biggie Hugs up in 5th right now is a testament to the improvement that he's put in. Last season saw Biggie Hugs finish in 12th overall, having attended 4 races, but only finishing 2 of those. So to keep the car going smooth in a position like 5th right now, kind of exactly what Biggie Hugs needs to get this season started on the right foot for a very big improvement.
Indeed, just doing what they need to do, just keeping it simple.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah. Back here with the Midnight Hurricane as well. I need to be careful as well. That white Porsche reminds me of Lucas's initial D-Inspired livery from, I believe, was last season.
Yeah, I believe last season on Lucas's Team Mofu car, he was running the tofu-inspired livery, as it were.
That's the one, yeah.
Maybe a rough race for Midnight in that Porsche 992, but still, P4 is a good position to get points at least.
It is. It's a very respectful position, and hopefully a good learning experience as well. Because that Porsche is definitely a difficult car to get to grips with.
Yeah, definitely going to teach Midnight how with some setup adjustments going forward for the series. As we do see Midnight coming up to pass a Nissan GTR of Kat Kisimiri. Kat very respectfully allowing Midnight pass without any issue. Still holding it close, but leaving plenty of room to pass. Although, again, Midnight a little bit, perhaps due to the tighter line into Wallonian, maybe a little bit wide there.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you are dependent on generosity from the GTR driver, just because that car has so much straight line speed. It may well be the highest top speed in this field. If not, it'll be top 3 easy.
I have heard that the Nissan GTR is quite a missile in a straight line.
It is. If you can just keep up with someone through the corners, then it is very satisfying just getting the move done on a straight, especially at a track like this.
Right. Well, with 10 minutes to go, we'll see how things pan out. I don't believe we have any on-track battles at the moment. Pit stop cycle seem to have come into effect and sort of let everybody settle in. It's the second stint of this 60-minute race, but I've been proven wrong before. You know what they say, never look at... What's it?
Never count your chickens before they hatch, that one? Or...
Yes, there's many idioms that could apply here. I was just forgetting which one to go with. My brain just pulled a blank at the last moment.
Which is a classic trick of just mixing two and just see what comes out and get some nice funny combinations going.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that one way too often.
Me too. So it looks like fairly consistent pace all around at the moment. Lucas Lichten put in a 2:18.1 last lap. That is only 3/10 slower than his best. Even better story for Mosong, who's put in a 2:18.05 last lap, which is only a 10th slower than their best. So yeah, it really is just about settling into that consistency right now.
Yeah, roughly 10 seconds back from Lucas Lichten, so maybe not able to... take a miracle for them to find 10 seconds in a GT3 car, especially with less than 10 minutes to go. However,
it is difficult, but I think in these situations, drivers start watching the relative, start watching the gap to the cars in front and behind, and it's not about knowing when they'll get an opportunity to attack, it's about making sure that you keep it where it needs to be. So they'll almost be ghost racing each other at this point rather than directly racing.
yeah, it goes from being a side-by-side on-track battle to be almost a battle of the wits, one could say. As you go to clock watching, as some people call it.
Yeah. To see if we can keep that concentration up. I love watching the cars through radio as well. Just seeing that air gap underneath them as they go over that crest. Love it.
Yeah, it's... If you're running a car with low downforce, as I've done in the past, it can definitely get a bit spooky.
Oh, for sure.
Although we've just been informed by our producer that Midnight is catching Ace in the Empire at a good rate of knots. I have not had the deltas put up between our two drivers.
It's alright, I'm keeping an eye on these at the moment. Ace's last lap was a 2:19.1, whereas Hurricane's was an 18.3, so an 8/10th difference over 1 lap. We're probably looking at 3-4 laps more for these drivers right now in the race. So,
it'd be quite a challenge for Midnight to catch and even pass Ace in the Empire. These two are both fairly aggressive early on.
They were.
Hopefully, if they do catch, there isn't anything too aggressive that befalls either one of them.
No, I think the thing to watch here is going to be the weight distribution on that Porsche again. Just see what, as that fuel burns off, as it is right now. I imagine we're entering that difficult phase as we speak. Just in case
especially as
keep it going the right way.
Especially as the weight comes off, you'll also get the dirty air off the 296 that, of Ace in the Empire that Midnight is chasing down. So
that's true.
Odds are definitely stacked against Midnight because catching is one thing, passing is another.
That's
I know it's very generic, somewhat, to say that, to repeat that phrase, but there's truth behind it.
There is. You're absolutely right.
And it's not that I doubt any of our competitors today. Is that a bit wiggly, or is that just the camera angle? I think that's just the camera angle.
No, that was definitely wiggly, that.
Yeah. Whether Midnight just wondering whether Midnight can keep that Porsche 911 992 in check as they get ever closer. 1.3 between the two of them now.
A little sideways there as well, I think. Might have been the camera deceiving me a little bit, but this is still looking very dramatic for two cars that aren't even within a second of each other at the moment.
Yeah, the gap is certainly coming down between the two, so it's definitely one to watch towards the end of the race. Because Midnight is definitely digging for the last little bit. Just how Ace in the Empire drive that Ferrari 296, how wide can she make that haunt?
This is that's the important question right now. When a Hurricane was a very capable racing driver, very good at getting a move done, as we saw last season.
Definitely. Sometimes with some of these battles, they creep up on you without realising. They just sort of slowly cooking there in the background. As Midnight very sideways out of No Name.
Yeah.
Really pushing that 992 to the limits.
It's making me sad there's no style points in this series, because if there were, a Hurricane would be getting some for sure.
Maybe that's something we'll have to bear in mind for the awards ceremony at the end of 2025, as we see maybe Battery with a drive-through in the last 3 and a bit minutes of the race. Currently running P2 in the AM class there. A bit of a challenging race for them, but this is not what they're going to want. Just depends on how big the delta is between Battery and Dreamfox. Both part of X-Ring Racing, but your first challenger is your teammate, as it were. Your first rival, sorry, is your teammate. So
that's true.
Both cars are in the AM class.
A little anxious watching that as well. Couldn't quite work out the suspension movement if maybe Battery actually got that car slowed down for the pit limit or not, but
That would be insult to injury if they got another one. I
It
have
really
definitely
would.
done it in previous seasons.
Oh, we all have.
Yeah, although who was that being held up by traffic? I believe that was Ace in the Empire, maybe getting a little bit held up by Renai Dreamfox. Not intentional, of course, maybe, but perhaps a little bit of misunderstanding of the driver behaviours, as they are very close to each other through the La Source hairpin. Been like all over the river, that Ferrari 296. Ace
Had a whole lot
hoping that
Rouge, but
getting the nose in, but thinking better of it. Ace, of course, pretty much got leaving them, forcing Ace in the Empire wide as we go down the counter straight. Now, Midnight is going to be wanting the slipstream there. Ace going on the defensive line, initially perhaps looking for the slipstream from Renai ahead in the Audi. It's the side-by-side into Lacombe. Very good driving between Ace with the advantage into the left-hander and still stays ahead, but that's a clear statement of intent from Midnight there in the closing laps of the race.
it really is. And no doubt a very frustrated Asa who's that we can get this Audi out of the way and get this battle done properly.
As that was a very weird moment. I wonder if we potentially get a replay on that of what happened to Renai, maybe trying to get out of the way but not choosing the opportune moment for it, because that's really slowed up their car in the sister team there of Midnight Hurricane.
Yeah.
Just that replay just in the middle of the apex in No Name. Not ideal. I wonder if maybe later on we get maybe after the race we could probably get another look at that, because not intentional from Renai. Get it, wasn't? Yeah. Not intentional, of course, from Renai, of course, slowing up the teammate in the senior car, as it were. But definitely detrimental as the gap has now grown to 5 seconds between Ace of the Empire and Midnight Hurricane. Very much.
Yeah, just a moment of just taking all the wind out of those sails, just for a moment. But around here, these kinds of speeds, that really adds up.
It really does. Although, as we hear that Lucas Lichten has taken the white flag on the final lap of the race, so this should, in theory, be the final lap for our competitors here.
So, Midnight Hurricane here behind Dreamfox again. I wonder if there was a follow-up to what we saw earlier, but
perhaps, but it just looks perhaps like a bit of miscommunication with the blue flag, maybe.
Yeah.
So the rules may exist, but it is partly up to interpretation and understanding. So perhaps maybe just a little bit of misunderstanding of the driver's intent between the two.
Yeah, like a disagreement about whether we do this one car and then the corner and then one car, whereas another car in the mix who thinks, okay, we'll both go through here then. Very difficult to figure that one out when you can't just talk it over. You know, all these drivers are in the same radio channel throughout the race, so.
Yeah. But that does certainly give Ace of the Empire a bit of breathing space for the final lap, should there be any other traffic shenanigans. But for Lucas Lichten here, our pole sitter, and outside of any last-minute dramatic events, a very consistent and quiet win potentially. I'm not going to say guaranteed because we've not crossed the line.
No, but
anything should happen.
But talk about Aston Empire's breathing room there as well. I think breathing room is exactly how you describe Lucas Lichten's race. He's had so much of it throughout this whole race. It's been a very peaceful drive for him, doing exactly what he needs to just bring it home in first.
Indeed, and despite the downhill start, as we go across the F1 start finish line, Lucas has indeed taken the win today for our season opener of the VTuber Track Challenge from Track.eu. And we see 10 seconds back there, Musong, a very, I think, well-deserved second place, arguably. Very, in the first part of the race, keeping Lucas honest. Maybe just befalling pitch strategy a little bit, as we see Ace of the Empire coming across P3, a very comfortable performance for her, I believe.
Yeah, she'll be thrilled with that.
See some of the other drivers fall across the line. Biggie Hugs in 5th, Psycho Kaiser in 6th, the leading Techno Burst car and team owner. See if there's any other last minute shenanigans between our drivers. I don't believe there were other battles that close on track. As we see, yeah, Renai Dream Fox confirming 2nd place for AM class, and a very fast maybe battery into into the hairpin there. That was a bit of an eye opener.
Yeah, almost a dramatic conclusion there.
Yeah. All of our drivers just coming across the line now. But that does mean that Kagura Mashiro,
yeah,
very much a well-deserved win in the AM class today. Very patient, very quiet, doing just what they needed to do.
And as we saw in the AM class, most importantly, mistake-free, penalty-free.
Absolutely. Now, regardless of class or driver, we are all human, so anybody could technically make a mistake, but it's minimizing them or not having them at all as to the ideal goal.
Yeah.
The last driver to come across the line is Haito Nasa there. So that should, in theory, round up the provisional grid from today's race. Again, a very good and dominant performance from Lucas Lipton here, followed by Musong, Ace in the Empire, Midnight Hurricane, Biggie Hug, Psycho Kaiser, Van Greg, Isaac Umbris, Mashiro, and unfortunately I wasn't fast enough to keep the printout for the rest of the field, but I believe it was Imentrix Zanes who came across P3 in AM. If that, we'll double check that one post-race and make our announcements in the usual spots, but if that is the case, I believe our clip master will be very content with that one. Of course.
Definitely.
That is all from us today. Any closing thoughts, April?
Clearly, consistency is king, especially on a track around Spa. We saw that with Lucas Lichten. He's been consistent from pretty much beginning to end, and yeah, it worked out great. We saw exactly the same story play out in AM as well. Consistency winning the race.
Yeah, I think it's very much like Spa is quite a challenging track to get your hands on. We saw a couple of our both new and experienced drivers, having a couple of unexpected moments, but
It's because we don't give Spa enough credit for just being kind of an outlier in the world of racetracks. It's a very unusual one. I don't think we give enough credit for that, so it just makes it harder to conquer and more of an achievement for the people who do.
Yeah, but overall I think you were right when you nailed it with consistency is king. Lucas proved that, a couple of the others here today proved that. Just got to keep it simple. But that is all from us for today. I do believe that... Do we have a race tomorrow for our wonderful viewers? I'm out of the loop, I do apologise. Yes, just been informed by our producer that although this is all we have planned for you today, we will be back tomorrow with the Old Guard series, a new series starting up for Track.eu. And I believe next week will be the continuation of our GT3 Cup. But yeah, that's all from me today. I've been Dirty Kohai, joined by April and Sean KP in the broadcast booth. And we'll see you next time on the racetrack.